So here's what we've learned. If you can't measure it, you can't understand it. And if you can't understand it, you can't be decisive. And now if you can't be decisive, you can't improve. If you can't improve, then you can't grow. Okay, welcome back to the podcast. This is going to be such a fun episode. We are diving into all things how to do a mid-year review. I recently asked on my Instagram stories if you wanted to know how we did our mid-year review at the Amplified Life company and how I look at things as a founder personally, and you said yes. So here is the podcast. Now, a few caveats to this and things that I want you to think about as we are doing our mid-year review is that what you measure improves. And you can't manage or you can't improve what you can't measure. I mean, think about it. If you can't measure something, you can't understand it. And if you can't understand it, you can't be decisive. And if you can't be decisive, then you can't actually improve the results that you want. I'm going to say that one more time. If you can't measure something, you can't understand it. And if you can't understand it, you cannot be decisive. You're always wavering if you're going to make the right choice or the wrong choice, or maybe even not making a decision at all. And if you can't be decisive, you can't make improvements. So that's why it's so important to measure, even measuring small things. And yes, you can measure things like, how did that make you feel? Often we don't think about that. We think about measuring income or profit or expenses or numbers or sales. But measuring some of the intangible things is important as well. The next thing I want you to remember is this is just all data. It's all information. And it means nothing about you, your worthiness, or if this is the right thing for you. I know all too often I see especially in entrepreneurship, that if we're not hitting our goals or we're not getting the expected outcome, then somehow we believe that it's not for us. And we might transition to something else, let something go, pick something up, or maybe continue doing it with less focus, less enthusiasm. And so we're never going to get the results that we initially planned for because we're not being intentional anymore. So I want to encourage you as you listen, and maybe you're doing your own mid-year review, is just to take the information as information. And once you can take it as information, you can understand how that's applicable to the goals that you set or your top 3 priorities. We'll talk more about that because, right, if you have more than 3 top goals or 3 top priorities, are they really even priorities? Something to think about there as you are goal setting. And hey, maybe you didn't really even set up goals or priorities for the year. And that's okay too, because guess what? Now you have a little bit more clarity. If you can look at the data and look at the information, you can start and you can set out goals, whether it be for your personal life, your corporate career, your leadership, your team, or your business. So let's go ahead and dive right in to step number 1. Now, everything that we do at the Amplified Life company is holistic in nature. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to personally rate the areas of your life and your personal fulfillment around them. Now, this is so important because if you're not feeling personally fulfilled, or if you have areas of your life that you're struggling in, that's going to bleed over into your professional life. And the areas that I encourage you to look at, and if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to move the camera here so you can see what the circles look like. But we use these big, like white pieces of paper, the big, huge sticky notes, and we create bubbles for each of the areas of life. And then we give a rating for each of the areas of life. So those areas are spiritual, health, significant other, relationships, so all other relationships, family and friends, your career, business, personal growth, finances, environment, and then free time. You could also think of that as hobbies. And then giving back, you could also think of that as community. So I want you to go through and I want you to think about your fulfillment in each of these areas of your life and rate it from 1 to 10, with 10 being like, oh my gosh, could this be even more fulfilling? And 1 being like, wow, I have been completely ignoring that the first half of 2024. And now my challenge to you is you cannot give yourself any 7s. So if you want to give yourself a 7, there is a few things. Let me look here as I'm looking that I actually wanted to give myself a 7. Let me go through my ratings really quick with you. So I have spiritual 9. So I'm feeling so good about the intimate relationship that I'm developing around my spirituality. Significant other 9. Joel and I have had so much growth, and I love where we're at with our relationship right now, and there's so much more that we're able to access, and I just look forward to continuing to adventure with him throughout our life. We're like over like almost 21 years. So health 8, and normally I'd be rating my health a little bit higher, but I've had a couple of things going on and a couple of things where I have been not as optimal as I normally am. So really good, right? By society standards, but not as optimal. And so I'm at an 8 there. I'm looking forward to getting back to a 9. I'm just joining my friend Justin Rothling's chauffeur. He owns Own It Coaching, and I'm joining a health group coaching program this month, which is really fun, where we're tracking our HRV and doing some personalized cell testing and things like that. So I'll report back on that. But I'm doing that starting July and August. So looking forward to doing that. Relationships 8. Business 6, and we'll dive more into that. That was one area where I wanted to give myself a 7, but I did a 6. Personal growth 10. This year has been all about character and capacity building. So, and character is really about when you can separate yourself from the feelings that you get when certain emotions come up, and you can step into what you know as your highest self and make decisions from that, even though the things in your environment or results or expectation or numbers are not going how you had anticipated. It's showing up in your highest character. Finances 6, and that's directly related to business because of the goals that we had under finance this year. Environment 8. Environment is physical environment and the people, places, and things that you're around. I love living here in Miami Beach, and I am just in awe of it all the time. And 8, because I know there's just so much more I can access here to feel grounded and peaceful every day. Free time 6. I'll share more about that, and giving back a 6. I do a lot to give back, but one of my goals this year was to find somewhere to volunteer personally and really give back my time and my talents. And I haven't yet done that, but I'm still on the lookout. So this is the first step to doing your mid-year review. Is just checking in. How fulfilled are you in each of these areas? And then I want you to think about, what is something that you can do, one thing in each of those areas, so that the rating, the fulfillment level could go up. And then I want you to ask yourself this question, and we have it written if you're watching it on YouTube, right in the middle is, what is the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? And I want you to just pick one of them, because if you try to do all 10 things at one time, that's not going to be possible. So, for example, when I look at all of the areas and the areas that I want to improve, I know that getting my health closer back to a 10 of optimal is going to spill over into the other areas. So really focusing on that coaching that I'm doing this month is going to be huge for me. And then in August, as I look at this, another thing that I want to do is start a hobby with Joel. We might even do it this month, and that goes to free time. It also goes to that psychological detachment from work or psychological detachment from doing, which is something that we all need in order to show up as our highest and best, not only in our life, but in our leadership, in our career, and in our businesses. And so those two things, health and hobbies, which are probably the opposite of what you think I would say would bring the biggest ROI, I believe and I know are going to bring the biggest ROI to me as far as fulfillment goes. And then the other things I'll start working on those as well as things come up and just prioritize them as we go. So that is taking a holistic view of your fulfillment in life. Okay, now step 2, we'll move to our next big white paper. And I have it all written out, and that is around our KPIs or our key performance indicators. So our key performance indicators this year were email list growth, business to business booked. So one of our goals this year is shifting our focus from B to C to B to B. So we're tracking how many new contracts we're signing for our business clients. The other thing we're tracking is significant writing done by me, whether that be completion of a chapter of my book or writing something significant in a long form copy. So for example, the newsletter that we write on LinkedIn, which if you haven't found me on LinkedIn, I do a newsletter. It's called the Empowerment Exchange. And you can just find me at Carmen Oling and subscribe to the newsletter. It's bi-weekly and it's long form copy, but it's definitely worth the read. So we're tracking when I'm doing significant writings to ensure that I'm staying in that process. We're also tracking the number of signups and people that are joining us at the Amplify Your Life conference in September in Bend, which if you have not grabbed your ticket yet, there is still time. We're about sold out of the VIP tickets, and there are still exclusive tickets available. And then the last area we track is our income, expense, and profit. And so those are our key performance indicators. Now, how did we come up with those specific key performance indicators for this year? Well, we sat and we thought of the 3 priorities or 3 main goals, and then we wrote strategies beneath those goals. But of the 3 priorities, and I'll share those with you, our first priority was to shift from a primarily B2C, so business to consumer company, to a business to business, B2B company. And we're doing that through keynote speaking, workshops, corporate training, workplace training, and the like. And that was our first goal. So a strategy under that is we did a few things. For example, rebranding our website. We put new offerings on our website, and we started updating and changing the type of information that we are sharing on social media. We have a bigger presence on LinkedIn now. And when someone asks what we do, we let them know that we're a life and leadership development company. And we speak at conferences and we do workplace trainings. And we started speaking around that versus just saying that we were doing one-on-one coaching or that we had a coaching academy. So we still have the Life and Leadership Academy that will be launching in October, which we are so excited because it's all revamped. We'll also put that link in the show notes if you're interested in that. So goal number 1, shift from B2C to B2B. Goal number 2 is that successfully host and collaborate with amazing individuals to put on the Amplify Your Life conference. And there are many, many things that were strategies under that. One of those things was the month of June, which was primarily around promotion for the conference in the state that the conference is going to be in. That was a really wonderful strategy. We had so much fun last month in the month of June. And then the third priority or third goal, again, if you have more than 3 priorities or 3 goals, I venture to ask you, are they really priorities? How can you prioritize 6 things, 10 things? Now, you can have strategies underneath each one of your priorities, and then you prioritize the strategy based on how you are going to roll it out. So, our third priority was to have my book, the manuscript, completed, the rough draft, and to be signed with a book agent. As we looked at this and we were tracking KPIs for this was the one area that not a lot has happened. The significant writing that I did this year was mainly around newsletters. There was really no book writing. There was a lot of free writing time, but nothing that was impactful for others or that would be or could be impactful for others. And so this is something that we're going to be revisiting in the second half of 2024 and how I'm going to create more discipline around that. So with our KPIs, those were the 3 goals: shift from B2C to B2B, host the Amplify Your Life conference, and rough draft of the manuscript, and sign with a book agent. So those were the 3 priorities, and that's how we came up with our KPIs. And then we sat down and we looked at each one of the KPIs. So for example, with our email list growth, and something I want to say here too that I'm so proud of us for is that we wrote our goals like 10x. So we're looking to 10x our goals, which means so far we're not quite there. That I know that there may be some goals by the end of the year that we may not reach. It's not going to be 100% successful, but we're going to get as close to it as possible. And that's okay. Because if we're reaching for 10x and we reach 4x, isn't that better than just trying to double what we did last year? And so as I looked at the KPIs, I was really proud of us that we almost reached our email list growth goal, which was amazing. One of the ways that we did this was through collaborations. And one thing that we know and that we believe as our company is that where your skill set ends, your community and your network really begins. And that is the way to get to the catalyst to your next level. And you're not going to be able to do it all alone. So we really celebrated that. And as we looked through many of our other KPIs, we did really good with, actually, we decreased expenses. So we're looking at simplifying this year. How can we make things even more excellent and effective and impactful, yet simple? That was a big question that we sit with each and every week. And it really shows in the decrease in our expenses. But many of our other areas, well, I did have a number of significant writings each and every month through our long form copy and our newsletters. I didn't work on any of the chapters of my book. In fact, I was just visiting my grandma a few weeks ago, and she asked me, "How is the book coming, Carmen?" And I said, "Please keep asking me, Grandma, because you know what? I've let other things take front seat to that. I don't want to do that anymore. This is something that's really important to me. And I'm going to make time for it. And I'm going to be disciplined around it. And it's part of my 20%. So we've talked about before on the podcast, figuring out what your 80-20 is, because the 20%, the stuff that we usually procrastinate on, the things that really move the needle, if you can work in that each and every day, you're going to be making so much more progress than if you start with the 80%. And when things get unorganized or feel chaotic, it's really easy for me to go back into this nervous system of just doing and being busy and working in my 80%, kind of just to check things off the list and not being focused on my 20%. And to me, that's one of the things that has happened with my writing, or I've made my 20% other things and not included my writing. So I'm looking at being way more disciplined in the second half of 2024 with my writing. So all in all, with the KPIs, most of them we are not meeting. And here's the thing I'm most proud of. that doesn't mean anything about me. That doesn't mean anything about our work, our opportunity to serve. Our goals are just really, really high. But you know what? The other thing that I found from this whole mid-year review that I hope you find if in any of the areas of your top priorities and top goals is you're not meeting them, is it's exciting. It actually gives me energy to know that there's capacity to do so much more. And the real question I'm asking is not how, but who. Who do I need to be able to get there? What information do I need? Who can help me? Who can do it for me? Who can show me? Even better, right? Who can show me? And another thing that you want to do with your KPIs is you really want to break down the data and the information. For example, with the email list I was telling you about, that we were so close to meeting our goal with our email list growth, which is so wonderful. Which we use Flowdesk. Flowdesk is one of the most aesthetically pleasing, easeful in that it's easy to use, but it's comprehensive enough that it can do things like segments and automations and forms and all of that, that everything that you need. Basically, I love Flowdesk. I'll put a link for them in the show notes too. But the analytics that they give even break down like how people signed up each month. So it breaks down, you know, 1 month we had 112 new people to our email list, which was amazing. And the number of people unsubscribing is usually under like 15, which is really, really good. And so we're getting this big number subscribing, a low number. And we did go through and we did an email list cleanup and we got rid of people that weren't active on the list or that sort of thing at the beginning of the year. But you can actually see how they're signing up, how they're getting on your list. You can see the things that you've built that are driving traffic, the lead magnets that are working, maybe the ones that aren't working, the ones that you could tweak, and you can really understand where those people are coming from. I can see where a certain collaboration brought in a number of email subscribers. So that could be something that I'd want to do again because it was really, really successful. Whereas another one didn't bring in that many. And so maybe those aren't my people. That's not my audience. And so that would be something that I wouldn't do again. And so really using the data as just information, but information to be able to, once you measure it, you understand it, and then you can make a decision and then you can make an improve from there. That's the importance of having this information and this data. Okay, step 1, holistic view, using your rating scales. Step 2, using your KPIs. Oh, and the other thing that I didn't mention about the income, expense, and profit, I actually have a full spreadsheet that's not a budget, it's projections. What we projected as far as income, what we projected as far as expenses that are associated with that income and so forth. And that's updated each and every month, our projections versus our actual. And that, again, is just data that we can use to make decisions, to understand in order to improve, to be more effective, to make a bigger impact. I highly, highly suggest if you do not have a projections worksheet, that you get with someone and have that created. Please shoot me a DM if you would like some recommendations on that. Now, the last thing is to look at your top 3 goals or top 3 priorities. Are they staying the same? Most of the time, they are going to stay the same. The strategies underneath them are just going to change if you're looking to improve. Because I don't want you to think, oh, I didn't hit this number, and so I should just start something else. This is not for me. This is not what I meant to be doing. And you can do this with your personal goals because I had 3 personal priorities too. So my 3 personal priorities, as I have them written down here because I'm writing my strategies underneath them, were take a 1-month sabbatical, reduce our expenses, so mine and Joel's personal expenses by 1/3, and then pay down half of the debt that we currently have. And then the third one was start hobbies, one by myself and one with Joel. So the sabbatical, I'm still uncertain when that's going to happen. I'm feeling like it's going to be fall, maybe December. Paying down, reducing expenses, amazing. We haven't yet paid down half the debt, but we're getting there. And as far as starting the hobby, I let that one slip too. So that's why I was saying it's so important to look at your personal fulfillment to see where you're at. And those are the areas that I'm going to be focusing on personally. Professionally, as I look at our goals, they're the same. So B2B focus, corporate workshops, trainings, and keynote speaking, the Amplify Your Life conference, and the book and the book agent. And so, what do I need to do? What are those strategies? How do we need to tweak them? And if June taught us anything as far as our business goes, is that the capacity of what we are capable of is so much greater. You know, at the beginning of this year, we focused on hiring and bringing some people onto the team, which involved a lot of time in a few months, and some things not working out and some things are working out. That was a big focus, and it took some of our capacity to be able to connect. And so I'm so excited again now in July and August, and of course in September at the Amplify Your Life event, to be more in person with people, making a bigger impact, being as effective as possible, because our capacity to impact the lives of business professionals, of leaders, of entrepreneurs, of all of you is so much greater. So we're just updating our strategies. So step 1, holistic view. Step 2, review your KPIs, dig into the numbers, use it only as information. Relook at your top 3 goals for the year. And this is step 3, relook at your top 3 goals and then create a strategy around them, both personally and professionally. I highly encourage you to have both. And these goals, share with your significant other. That's so important to share these with your significant other. And as far as we go, one of the things that we are doing is measuring and tracking weekly. So looking at this on Mondays, instead of just looking at it at the end of the month, instead of just looking at it at the end of the quarter or this half year, mid-year review, we're looking at all of these KPIs every week now. And I know that that's going to make a difference. It's really proven that when you use the data and use the information and you measure things, you have higher performance. And also your interpersonal, your mindset is actually improved because you're stressing less, because you can make decisions based on the things you understand and the data itself. Okay, so that's it for this week's podcast about mid-year review. I hope you do your own mid-year review. There is a leader guide for this podcast that has these steps broken down for you. You can download that in the show notes. I hope that's helpful. And I would like to hear from you. Shoot me a DM at Carmen Oling, or hey, come shoot me a message on LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, come find me. I'd love to connect with more of you on LinkedIn and on that newsletter. So have so much fun with your mid-year review, and just know that there's so much more for all of us in the second half of 2024. And I can't wait to see how things turn out for you.